A child's handkerchief was found in the desert, soaked through with blood. Knotted carefully in its corner were two small coins, a nickel and a dime. The kind a boy keeps because they feel like treasure. That handkerchief was the only trace of 8-year-old Henry Fountain that was ever found. His body never was. And the man most people believe ordered his murder? He went on to serve in the United States cabinet. The man who made enemies New Mexico territory. February 1896. This is not yet a state. It is a wilderness dressed as civilization. A place where cattle barons rule by fear, judges can be bought, and the wrong piece of paper filed in the wrong courthouse can get a man killed before sundown. Colonel Albert Jennings Fountain knew this better than most. He had been a soldier in the Civil War, a fighter against Apache raids, a Texas state senator, and one of the most feared prosecutors in the entire Southwest. Born on Staten Island in 1838, Fountain had spent his life walking into rooms where powerful men did not want him. He had taken down the Kinney Gang. He had prosecuted land fraud across the territory. But in January of 1896, he had finally done something that certain men could not forgive. He had ridden 150 miles to the Lincoln County Courthouse and spent weeks building a case. When the grand jury finished its work, Fountain walked out holding indictments against 23 men, cattle rustlers and brand defacers operating across the territory. At the top of that list sat Oliver Lee, a rancher, a gunman, a part-time deputy U.S. Marshal, with powerful friends and a history of making problems disappear. On the last day of that session, a folded note was pressed into Fountain's hand by a stranger. It read, "If you drop this, we will be your friends. If you go on with it, you will never reach home alive." Fountain pocketed the note and filed the charges anyway. He had done something else that week. He had brought his 8-year-old son Henry along for the journey. His wife had insisted on it. She had been hearing the threats building against her husband for weeks and knew the roads were not safe. She sent the boy along because she believed, truly believed, that no man would raise a rifle at a father sitting next to his child. That belief cost Henry his life. The last road home. The morning of February 1st was cold and hard. Fountain loaded Henry into his buckboard wagon and turned the horses southwest toward home in Mesilla. Henry had a cold. Fountain was anxious to get him home, but the men waiting for them were not impatient. They had been watching since Lincoln. Witnesses along the route later told investigators that 3 riders had been shadowing Fountain's wagon for 2 to 3 days, tracking father and son across open desert. They were not riding hard. They were simply there, staying back, waiting for the right stretch of empty road with no farmhouse in sight and no one to hear anything. Somewhere out on the Tularosa Road, rolling across white gypsum sand and winter silence, Fountain spotted them, 3 riders. Behind him, not moving off, a man who had spent 30 years in the violent politics of New Mexico territory would have known exactly what that meant. He would have looked at his son beside him on that wagon seat and urged those horses as fast as a buckboard could go. It was not fast enough. Somewhere near Chalk Hill, in the shadow of the San Agustin Pass, the Fountains vanished from the earth. What the desert kept. When Fountain's wife reported them missing, Pazes rode out the following morning. The buckboard sat abandoned on the road, roughly 45 miles from home. The horses were still there. Scattered nearby were Fountain's legal papers, his cravat, and several empty rifle cartridge casings. Close to the wagon, investigators found 2 separate pools of blood soaked into the desert floor. One described as 7 or 8 inches deep and twice the width of a spittoon. The amount of blood strongly suggested a fatal ambush. Searchers found the spot where a man had knelt behind a shrub and fired, knee impressions still pressed into the dirt. They found the tracks of 6 horses. They found a single footprint from one of Henry's small boots, just one, pressed alone into the sand with nothing beside it. And they found that handkerchief, soaked red. The 2 coins still tucked in its corner, the way a boy ties up his pocket money so it does not get lost. They did not find Albert Fountain. They did not find Henry. What came next was worse. The marks around a nearby campfire told investigators that Fountain's body had been moved there after death, but that at that point, Henry had still been alive. The boy had not been killed at the wagon. The Pinkerton reports, commissioned by the territorial governor, stated it plainly. Fountain was killed during the ambush, but his 8-year-old son was kept alive and murdered only the following day. Some investigative interpretations suggested Henry may have survived the initial ambush, but this remains unproven. These killers had tracked a man and a small boy for 3 days, had a campfire prepared, and had a plan for the bodies. This was not a crime of opportunity. It was organized, deliberate, and carried out by men who fully expected to walk away from it. They were right. The hunter and the hunted. The local sheriff, whose own deputies were prime suspects, was doing nothing. So Governor William Thornton pulled out a name, Pat Garrett, the man who had shot Billy the Kid dead 15 years earlier. Garrett was appointed sheriff of Doña Ana County and offered an $8,000 reward. Pinkerton operative John Fraser was brought in alongside him. Garrett built a case pointing at 3 men, Oliver Lee, William McNew, and Jim Gilliland, all tied to a powerful lawyer-politician named Albert B. Fall, the man many believed had orchestrated the killings from a safe distance. When Garrett moved to arrest them, Lee and Gilliland refused to surrender. In July of 1898, Garrett tracked both men to a ranch near Alamogordo. A gunfight left one of his deputies dead. Garrett was forced back into the desert, bleeding and retreating. Then came the move that showed exactly how deep the rot went. Politicians friendly to Albert Fall redrew the county lines, carved up Doña Ana County, created a new jurisdiction called Otero County, and stripped Garrett of all legal authority over the case. The new sheriff was handpicked by Fall's allies. Lee walked in and surrendered to him the same week, guaranteed a trial in a distant town before a jury Garrett could not touch. 7 minutes. The trial of Oliver Lee and James Gilliland opened on May 26, 1899, in the small mining town of Hillsborough. The charge was the murder of 8-year-old Henry Fountain. Nobody was ever charged with the murder of the colonel. Albert Fall stood at the defense table. 18 days, 75 witnesses. The prosecution laid out the horse tracks, the crime scene, the boot print in the sand. They put Pat Garrett on the stand. But they had no bodies. Fall knew exactly what he was doing. Witnesses who had spoken freely to investigators months earlier suddenly remembered nothing. When Lee took the stand, women in the gallery wept. He told the jury he had not even known he was a suspect until several days after the Fountains vanished. The jury deliberated for 7 minutes. 7 minutes. After an 18-day trial, after a father and his sick 8-year-old son were hunted across the desert, ambushed, separated, and killed. After a child was held alive through a desert night and murdered at dawn. 7 minutes. Not guilty. The gallery cheered. Oliver Lee shook Albert Fall's hand and walked out of that courthouse into the afternoon sun a free man. No one was ever charged again. The Pinkerton reports, the only real investigative record of the crime, were stolen from the territorial governor's own office within 4 months of the murders. The local sheriff was himself under suspicion. The county lines were redrawn to protect the accused. Witnesses went silent, and Albert Fall rose steadily through American political power. United States Senator when New Mexico achieved statehood in 1912, then Secretary of the Interior under President Warren G. Harding. In 1929, he became the first former cabinet member convicted of a crime committed while in office. He died broke in El Paso in 1944. He never answered for what happened on that desert road. Oliver Lee became a New Mexico state senator. There is a state park named after him today. Pat Garrett kept investigating the Fountain murders for years after the acquittal. Many historians believe he was closing in on powerful men when, in February of 1908, he was shot dead on a road outside Las Cruces, 1 bullet to the back of the head. His murder was never solved. In October of 1900, charred remains of what appeared to be a man and a boy were found in a canyon in the Sacramento Mountains. A positive identification was impossible. No grave was ever marked. 3 separate mysteries. 3 separate unsolved threads, all pointing at the same circle of men. None of it ever answered in a court of law. Somewhere beneath the white gypsum desert of southern New Mexico, a colonel and his 8-year-old son are still out there, unburied, unnamed on any stone, waiting on a justice that never came and, after 130 years, almost certainly never will. The case is still open.